here's Brody Brazil.
So this is going to be a video about Oakland and the A's and Las Vegas and Major League Baseball and stadiums and renderings and real estate and construction and the economy and politics. And my goodness, when all of this converges, it sometimes becomes a situation that I just don't understand. Some things have happened that I can't figure out why they've happened, how they've happened, or the trajectory of what even to expect to happen next. I mean, to be fair, I'm on the outside of a lot of this looking in. I'm not privy to all of the intimate, closed-door details by any means, but in this process of the A's trying to find their new forever home and replace the Coliseum, wherever that's going to be, this has gone on for days and weeks and months and years and, yes, decades. Decades of confusion and circumstances and situations and maneuvers. And a lot of the times I just don't understand what exactly is going on. It's really been hard to put together the pieces. Now, I need to also say this before anything else. With a video and a title like this, Things I Don't Understand, just because I don't understand these things that I'll be sharing doesn't mean that I'm completely right about something and somebody else is absolutely wrong about them. For the sake of this video, I'm simply saying here are some things that I've tried really hard from the outside looking in to understand, and I can't figure it out. Beginning with this, let's go back to April 19th when the A's officially turned their focus to Las Vegas and essentially turned their backs on the city of Oakland. And Mayor Sheng Tao was very disappointed in that evening and in these moments, and she publicly said that it was unfortunate that the A's broke off these talks because just days after that, they were scheduled, I'm talking about the A's and the city of Oakland, those two sides were scheduled to get together for a multi-day meeting, a 3-day summit, if you will, to try and hammer out final details of the Howard Terminal project. And in her words and description, she said the two sides were about 90% of the way there. Obviously, 10% is still a big bridge, a gap to bridge. But even that the A's had scheduled their own mediator, the city of Oakland was okay with the A's own mediator coming in to assist this process to really try and bridge these two sides to get them to come together. By the way, these are the same two sides which had agreed to kind of a media silence for the many months leading up to these meetings and this negotiation, and both sides held true on that. You really didn't hear much from Oakland or the A's about Howard Terminal. It went so silent for so long. So they were on the same page for all of that until the end, when the A's, again, kind of just turned their focus instantly to Las Vegas instead of Oakland. And it kind of leaves you just looking at Howard Terminal. Where did it go wrong? Where did we leave Howard Terminal? And in retrospect, two main things. Number one, the affordable housing situation. The A's had agreed to a certain legal threshold. There was no question about that. They'd have to provide some of it as part of their project. But the city of Oakland, in retrospect, was looking for something like double the legal threshold. So that was left to be resolved. But then there was also this. The main sticking point was infrastructure money. And an amount that originally came out to be $350 or so million, it escalated over time from 2018 to 19 to 20. Obviously, in 2023, we don't know the actual value, but probably close to $450, maybe $500 million of infrastructure money necessary at the Howard Terminal site. Well, the city of Oakland went out and secured $375 million of state and federal grants, which were already earmarked for projects just like this. They already secured that amount of money. And unfortunately, it was going to take some extra. People will say, and reports will tell you, that that dollar amount was anywhere from $85 to $150 million of an infrastructure money gap remaining. That's it. Now, when I say that's it, understand that $85 to $150 million is what a lot of major league teams spend on their players alone for a single season these days. And so that's going to be the hard part to swallow looking back is, were we really that close to the A's and Howard Terminal? What else was standing in the way? Affordable housing, infrastructure money? What else? Legally, there weren't many challenges left. The EIR had already been certified and contested with lawsuits that were all dismissed. The BCDC declared the land at Howard Terminal. They removed the port priority use so it could be used to build a ballpark. There was not much else standing in the way. So in reverse, looking at this, if you're the A's, you spent years on this. You say you spent $100 million on this. And I understand if you're going to lose something, cut your losses at some point. But if we're relating this to a baseball game, it's almost like we were tied at a certain score, and then after the 8th inning, one team said, we think we're done. There was no 9th inning. If there wasn't this summit, these meetings with a mediator involved, it kind of feels like the game never actually finished, and somebody declared it was over, though. Okay, so let's move on to this. Here's another thing I don't understand. Major League Baseball, and specifically the commissioner, Rob Manfred, I think it was about a year ago or within the last year, he declared that if the A's were to relocate, he would not charge them, he would not have them on the hook for a relocation fee, which is expected to be about $500 million. You understand, $500 million split evenly among all the other major league teams. So when one team moves, everybody else gets paid off for it. $500 million, I should say, divided by all the other teams. For him to come out and establish that seemed pretty bold, and maybe he'll hold up to it. Maybe the major league owners, if it comes down to the application for relocation and the owners voting on this, maybe they'll go along with what the commissioner has already promised the A's. But it does seem like a really interesting promise to make when that hasn't been the status quo for any other team that wanted to relocate. And maybe we don't know everything. Maybe there's a different way for the A's to pay or reimburse Major League Baseball. Maybe there's something else that they will owe the league for relocation, but it would be an interesting precedent to set in baseball. Because all of a sudden, if the A's don't owe anything, they don't owe $500 million to relocate, what about the next team that wants to move? Well, they'll say, hey, whoa, we don't do relocation fees. You didn't charge the A's. Why would you charge us? And just so you know, relocation is about a $500 million fee. Expansion is like a $2 billion fee. There is a huge difference between the two. We also understand Major League Baseball is looking to expand by 2 teams. Maybe the thought from the commissioner, and maybe this is the thought, if the owners could pass on moving the A's, which would resolve all the teams and hopefully get Tampa settled too, maybe the thought is if you pass on this $500 million, it'll get you to the $4 billion of expansion fees that are set to come. But again, that's me guessing. I still, from this point, can't figure out how you would tell teams, don't worry about the relocation fee, because wouldn't Las Vegas be an expansion city anyways? If the A's don't move there and don't have to pay $500 million to go there, do you think you would never collect $2 billion from a team looking to call Las Vegas home? I think they could. Canceling the relocation fee is a huge perk to being able to move. If you're a baseball team that's relocating, you're already paying probably something for a new stadium, something for the land that you need to acquire for the stadium. Chopping off $500 million is a big deal. That is a huge perk for any team that's looking to move. Okay, let's move on here. Why did the news break when it did back on the night of April 19th? The A's had some plans in line, but then again, since they announced their land purchase agreement at the Wild Wild West casino site, those 49 acres, they've changed their plans even entirely since then. So why wouldn't you wait until, maybe you had the Tropicana Hotel and Bally's site and thing all figured out? Why wouldn't you wait until you really had things lined up? You had some renderings to wet people's whistle on what this might look like and really gain some momentum. Also, with the ability to get in contact with the legislators. There may have been some things we don't know about, reasons why the news had to come out or people were going to find out some other way anyways. But again, just looking back, before you really had everything finalized, set in stone, your T's crossed, your I's dotted, this comes out and it wasn't fully ready yet. Obviously, like we said, there's been some fluidity since then. We also understand there's been a certain time crunch this entire time, no matter what the site is, the Wild Wild West Casino or the Tropicana site. As you're watching this, only 20-something days left in the legislative session for this language to be presented and the official request for public money, which has to be part of this site. But again, just in reverse, hard to figure out why this came to be public knowledge before it was actually like a real official thing. Okay, let's go back to the Oakland side, and specifically the Alameda County portion of the Coliseum. Now, they sold their half of the Coliseum site, 120 acres. They sold it to the A's back in December 2019. But they really didn't protect the future of the Coliseum site. Since then, by the way, the city of Oakland, they have sold their half of the land. It used to be half Alameda, half Oakland. Alameda sold to the A's. The city of Oakland sold to the African American Sports and Entertainment Group, which wants to develop this land. But again, the other half of ownership is the A's. Now, there is language in the A's land purchase agreement for the Coliseum that if they move following the 2024 season, which it sounds now like they intend to do, they will instantly owe $45 million immediately to pay off the rest of their land purchase. They didn't pay it off all at once. They're paying progressively over time. But if they move away, they instantly owe $45 million to pay off their remaining half. Now, if they move and they pay it off, they own half the land. But that's going to create a really interesting situation if the A's are officially out the door to the state of Nevada, but they still own half of the 120-acre Coliseum site. How easy or difficult will it be to move forward with redeveloping that, doing something good for the neighborhood and city of Oakland? Who knows? But it would be a very difficult, dare I say, precarious situation. What should have been done all along by the county of Alameda, instead of saying pay off the rest of it, the language should have said, if you relocate to a different city, the purchase is off. You get your money back, you start from scratch, and you don't own any of the land. We'll figure out something else to do. The sale should have reverted back to the county of Alameda instead of the A's owning it outright after owing the final $45 million. So again, from the Alameda County side, I don't get it. Okay, let's talk about project preferences and priorities. Now, the A's all along, when they talked about Howard Terminal, they said they wanted to build a waterfront ballpark. It had to be a ballpark village. It had to include 3,000 units of housing, obviously some residential, the commercial. It had to include a little bit of everything. It was going to be its own district, a waterfront ballpark district just north of Jack London Square. It had to be more than just a ballpark to be viable from a construction standpoint, from a payment standpoint. And I understand that's what a lot of new projects are doing. Look at Atlanta and the Battery at Truist Park. I totally understand. You want to build more than a stadium. You want to build an experience, but also something that does well financially for the project. What's crazy about all of this, and especially with recent developments, is now the A's, instead of doing 55 acres at Howard Terminal, which a lot of people thought was cramped to begin with. I mean, I've walked the site at Howard Terminal, and I'll tell you from being there, you're like, how's a big league stadium going to fit on these 55 acres? Well, the answer is it easily could. It's more spacious than it seems. But 55 acres compared to the, I kid you not, 9 acres that the Tropicana hotel site is going to provide the A's for this project. There is no way you're fitting anything more than a baseball stadium on 9 acres. In fact, you're going to have even a tough time doing that. You know, stadiums with 9 acres, that's like Fenway Park and Wrigley Field. Even Oracle Park in San Francisco, which I'm not saying is cramped, but I'm saying they use all square inches of land. Like they use every square foot of land they can on that project, and that's still 12.5 acres. Target Field is advertised has 8.5 acres, and they recently built it. Beautiful ballpark for the Minnesota Twins. But what they don't tell you is that there are 2 additional acres which actually hang over train tracks and nearby roads so that the site is actually more like 10.5. Getting a brand new ballpark on 9 acres, yeah, probably doable, but the ballpark is going to be it. So it's interesting now how the preference and the priority of the A's, when it used to be ballpark, development around it, has now turned into 9 acres only. On the Strip, don't get me wrong, it's going to be a busy location, and I mean busy in a sense of tourists. I don't know how locals are going to prefer a ballpark on the Strip. Traffic might be an issue, ingress, egress. I mean, if we talked about all that stuff for Howard Terminal, what's an EIR going to look like for the Tropicana Hotel site and 35,000 people going in and out 81 times a year? So preferences and priorities for the project changing. Again, I don't, it's interesting how that's changed. And maybe that's an evolution, but in reverse, if you needed to do the project one way, it certainly seems like now there's the ability or the desire to do it a totally different way. Okay, can this ballpark even be built for $1.5 billion? But look, the same could have been said about Howard Terminal. That was a $1 billion project. Was that price going to go up over time? The answer is, who knows? But I'm confused on how do you know that's the right amount right here, right now? Allegiant Stadium, which is twice the size, right? Seats 70-something thousand, also does not have a retractable roof. So this is kind of apples and oranges. But even that cost $1.9 billion 3 years ago. And prices have changed. Prices have gone up. So it's hard to really know. I mean, this goes for all teams in all locations, but how do you really know that you can do this for $1.5 billion? My thought is there's no way you can do it. And especially you can't do it in Las Vegas. You know why? Everything you do in Vegas has to be Vegas level. Like they're building this MSG Sphere. It's a concert venue more north on the Strip, actually off the Strip. But I mean, they're literally building a sphere, the shape of a golf ball, basketball, whatever, but that is the concert venue. There's no speakers. The whole ceiling is one big speaker. Like my point is, when you do something in Las Vegas here, you've got to do something magical. If $1.5 billion builds you the most bare bones baseball park, that's not enough on the Strip of Las Vegas. Think about the bad hotels on the Strip. Those are the ones that they want to tear down. You have to build something that is extravagant and elaborate and knocks people's socks off. Could you build a ballpark for $1.5 billion with a retractable roof? I'm certain you can. It might look like a Home Depot or a Lowe's warehouse store, but you could do it. But to do it up to Vegas standards, I don't know. I don't know. And if you add on another, $500 million of cost here, I mean, if the A's are really strapped in how much they can spend or how much public money they will or won't get, I mean, going from $1.5 billion to $2 billion quickly, like it totally changes the tune and tone of the project and what you're doing. So again, look, I want to be very clear. Because I've said here that I don't understand some things, it may simply be because I don't have all the information. I want to declare that. I don't like a lot of times here on YouTube or other places when people are firing off hot takes. So I just don't know. These are things that I'm struggling to figure out. I'm struggling to put the pieces together on. But I just wanted to pass them along. So since you watched here all the way to the end of the video, thumbs up on it. I'd really appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe so that I can see you next time.